this morning. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an overview and a little bit about my story coming into Xero. And it's a great honour to be named #1 innovative company in Australia. It's quite a shock, really, and very humbling. But I'll tell you a little bit about our story for those who may not know a lot about us. Paul, great talk, very passionate. Talk about context. Our context is very much about being passionate about small business. You mentioned market share. Market share for us, you can measure it through different ways, and there's a lot of numbers out there. I look at market share, I look at the context of what we do from this perspective. There are 2.1 million small businesses in Australia. We have a very strong belief, and we are passionate about the role that technology can play in being able to drive productivity in this sector. If you look at small business as a sector that represents 42% of GDP, and our belief is that cloud computing and technology generally enhances small business and applied to be able to drive productivity change in the sector can have a profound impact on the economy. So that's the thing that we're passionate about. That's the thing that gets us out of bed and really motivated to do the best we can to bring technology and put it in the hands of small businesses. And of course the advisors that provide advice in and around that. So Xero, delivering the unexpected. It was interesting when I got the phone call back in 2010. I rang half a dozen people when I decided to leave Microsoft. And one of the guys I rang actually called me a few weeks later and he said, "Hey, listen, I've met this crazy guy from New Zealand who's got a startup that's doing accounting software for small business." And my instant response was, hasn't someone already done that? And he said, "No, it's quite different, cloud-based, it's really interesting." And it's funny when I came into Xero and started, as a managing director of Australia, so running around talking to business owners and talking to accountants about what it is that Xero is doing and why it was so unique. I remember I ran a business division in Microsoft, which was the whole business application software division, which is the Dynamics brand. And so I've been in and around accounting software and financial software for a few years. And I was across Xero, and I love the design and the user interface and so forth. But I didn't quite get, there was a lot of advocacy. I was hearing from customers how passionate they were, and I said, it's accounting software. Why is everyone so excited? It wasn't until I actually spoke to a friend of mine, he said that the issue is, Chris, that accounting software is something that we toil with as small business owners. We spend a lot of time running our businesses, managing books, and it's become a very, we've been trained into thinking this is a very painful process. And what Xero's done is come along and made that same painful process a delightful one. So the unexpected was really about this whole tagline of ours, which is beautiful accounting software, which is really not particularly intuitive, accounting software that's beautiful. And I'll talk a bit about, from an innovation standpoint, how we've approached this from a completely different mindset. Whoops, jumping ahead. Innovation absolutely leads to advocacy. If you can read those tweets, it's really interesting. And the story I just told was about how business owners really do respond positively, spending so much time having to do the compliance in their business. But that advocacy really does shine through from our customers. A little bit about what we've been able to achieve in a short space of time. When I started, we were a $1.2 million business. We're now in Australia, I'm talking about, well over 60 million in annualised revenue. I started with about 4,000 customers. We're actually approaching 200,000 now in Australia. We're signing up in excess of 400 new small businesses every day in Australia. That just gives you an idea of cloud computing. I did a media interview yesterday, and the question was, what's Xero doing? I'm a huge believer in the fact that cloud computing, and it is breaking down the barriers of how small businesses can get on board with technology. Some of the things that we're seeing now with small businesses getting access to cloud technologies and cloud accounting is a huge game changer. These are solutions that even 5 years ago would have cost tens of thousands. Now, subscribing to these applications, being able to build sophisticated solutions, is a real game changer. I started with 7 staff. It was really nice actually leaving a big corporate like Microsoft, having 7 staff. Wednesdays I'd take the rubbish out. It was actually really good fun. And I have no regrets with the rapid growth we've had, but that first year was a lot of fun. A little office, 7 people. I could have national company meetings in a cafe. Again, great problem to have, but we've grown rapidly. We have this great ecosystem. I mentioned
the ability to build these sophisticated applications by having cloud applications that plug into Xero. We very much view our strategy as building a financial platform by which you can then plug in other applications that help run a business. And this is the add-ons ecosystem that's built around Xero. When I started, there were 25. There's now over 350. This is all about having an open platform, an open accounting platform that allows other software developers to plug in. We get to tap into that great innovation and actually put that in the hands of our small businesses. It's very much like an app store model, right? App store for small business. And obviously we've had some great recognition. Last year been named Forbes magazine's most innovative growth company globally, which was again very humbling. Top 20 places to work. And I'll talk a little bit about culture. It's been a huge, huge focus of mine. Really interested to hear some of the things that Paul was talking about, absolutely resonating with me about how you need to provide purpose and great values across an organisation to build great cultures. Rod Drury, our founder, we're a big believer that the small business market in terms of a monetisable opportunity is probably the biggest on the web. My introduction into cloud was very much from a consumer standpoint at Microsoft. And consumers are great. I mean, there's millions upon millions of them, but they don't like to pay for stuff. And I also had most of my career was involved in the big end of town in enterprise. And there's not nearly as many of them. They'll pay big money, but it's very complex in that space. The great thing about small businesses, as you saw, 2.1 million of them, they think and behave like consumers. So a lot of the stuff that we've built around Xero, having a great user interface, cloud-based mobile, is very much in the hands of a consumer. They love it. And as a small business, they'll also pay for it. So it's very much about how can we build a Facebook-like approach, but do so in an area of the market in small business that is monetisable. You think about a lot of the on-premise big software applications that have been around for some time. There's this kind of natural disruption going on across all of those categories with big native or disruptive native cloud providers coming in and providing a lot of disruption to the existing incumbents. Let me talk a little bit about innovation at Xero. So it was clearly the industry was ripe for innovation. I remember Rod calling me after I'd been in the role 3 months. He said, well, what do you think? I mean, do you think we can do this? And what really struck me was just the lack of innovation that had occurred up until then. I think, speaking to a number of accountants and bookkeepers that really wanted us to succeed, said, hey, we love what Xero's doing, but we want to make sure that you guys are going to be around. And that's always a challenge when you're in that startup phase, really proving that you've got the goods to be around and make the right investments. The other thing I like to talk about is the art of developing software. I've been around the industry 25 years and been around software for most of that time. And a lot of people think of building software as an engineering process, and accounting in particular. It's not particularly exciting when you actually look at the raw accounting that's behind it. But the art of building software is very different. And this is one of the things that I think in a number of areas of the software industry, it's a lost art. What really struck me with Xero when I joined was just the passion that came with actually building software. That you've got design, for example, that's built into that very early stage of understanding what it is that we're trying to build. Quite often software companies will build software and they'll throw it over the fence at the end to the designers to say, hey, look, put some lipstick on this pig for me, will you? But that's not how to build great software. It is, it's not necessarily an engineering process. It's about really understanding the design elements that really go into making a very different experience. And also for Xero, it was really about understanding the workflow of small business. We didn't set out to actually build another accounting product. It's really interesting, and a good example of that, in 2009, when the guys were, and it was before my time, when the guys were looking at, how do we really start to change the game in the way that accounting software can be used? So we introduced bank feeds in 2009 into the accounting software. And that was based on the premise, what is the first thing that a business owner does when they come in the morning? What do? They check internet banking to see if they've been paid. Hey, wouldn't it be really cool if we could bring those transactions into the accounting software in the context of those transactions to be able to provide, gamify the whole process of bank reconciliation so that by 9:15 they've got a real-time view of the cash flow. Change the game in terms of how accounting software was viewed. Because most businesses that were in the on-premise or using the old desktop systems were using accounting software as a sort of a rear-view mirror, right? So they get to the end of the month, it's like, man, I need to catch up on invoicing and I need to do all my books because it was compliance-led. And what Xero's enabled is to actually turn that whole thing around and say, well, actually, you can now start using accounting to actually run your business and have insights into what's happening in the business and actually understand your cash flow in real time. And a lot of what we do is community driven. So if you look at, for those partners that we provide our accounting bookkeeping partners with voting rights to come up and say, hey, what are the features you want? Last year we did just under 900 feature requests. And we work through those and we actually have voting systems and we look at what are the most requested features. It's a big job building a horizontal accounting engine. And I've always said, we're not done yet. We've still got some work to do in terms of finishing the accounting engine. But it's really interesting that a lot of our decisions that we make in terms of what we're going to develop comes from the community, comes broadly from our customers to say, hey, these are the gaps, or hey, wouldn't it be really cool if you did this? And then there's other elements that you just kind of come up with really cool ideas and say, hey, wouldn't it be great if we did X, Y, Z? And that's the unexpected element, which is a surprise and delight. From a company standpoint, it was really interesting for me, having grown up in the corporate world around this concept of having corporate values. They existed from day one. When I joined Xero, and it was really about what are the core things that really define what we're about. I'm not going to go through all these, but I'll pick out a couple. One of them was being human. It was about how do we approach this in a really authentic way. And one of the things that led me to do was when I was, I remember the first board meeting and they said, hey, how do you really start to scale and grow this business? With 7 staff, we've got a lot of work to do. And I said, well, I need some salespeople. I need 5 actually, and because I only had 2. And my instincts were, when I got the approval to do that, was to go out and actually approach the competition. Oh, the best salespeople, the best people out there, the guns of the industry. And I started talking with some of them, and not that they were bad people, but I just thought they're not us. They're not really what I want. What's been interesting with Xero's journey is that instinctively that was the approach I took. But what we ended up doing, I started hiring practitioners. So a lot of the salespeople in Xero are actually accountants and bookkeepers, because what I found, and I remember the first bookkeeper I hired who put him in a sales role, she said, I've never sold anything, but I run a bookkeeping business. I love Xero, and I reckon I can tell the story because I'm really passionate about what it's meant for me in terms of changing the way that I ran bookkeeping. It made me successful. And so, we've got truly passionate people that believe in what they're doing, and that makes a huge difference, huge difference. The other thing you might look up there is beautiful, and it's not that we go out and hire beautiful people. It is about that whole concept of innovation. Everything we do, we want to engage, we want to delight people, we want to inspire. And that goes through the product, it's how we do events, it's how we brand, it's all the things that come into really creating a great experience. And that permeates right through our culture. Just a couple of other things. Culture is everything. So I still, it's funny because, compare notes with people in the industry and your colleagues that are out there doing different things. One of the things that I do is I still interview all the staff. So we're 200 now. And I've missed a couple because I've been travelling and so forth. But even if it's just like yesterday, I was coming up on the train from Sydney and I interviewed someone on the phone. It's a conversation. And for me, it's really important. With our rapid growth, it'd be very easy, and I've seen this with other organisations that grow rapidly. And, you're desperately hiring people. We hired over 70 people last year. And I've interviewed all of those. And the reason I do that is twofold. One is that I've got a very strong sense of what is right for our culture. We hire for diversity. Don't get me wrong. It's not a groupthink thing where I sort of hire in the people that I think are going to sort of agree or in my sort of image of what I want. We're very, very diverse in our culture. But what I do look for is that passion. I look for people that can really come in and complement and bring something really interesting to the culture. I've said no 4 times in the last year. You might think, oh, he's a bit of a control freak. I'm not. I trust the process, and I've said that to the guys around me, but every so often I just think, no, this person's probably not right. We're not right for them, or they're not right for us. And the other thing it does, though, it really demonstrates that we really care about who we're bringing to the organisation. I actually get a bit of a chuckle out of some of the roles that come in. So I'll interview, someone who's sitting at doing tickets in customer care. But I think that's a super, super important role, because if they can bring passion to that role, but it's really funny how they're sort of in the last leg of the interview process and they go, oh, look, Chris, our MD, wants to interview, and they go, oh my God, they're really nervous. I say, don't worry about it. What do you do? What do you do outside of work? And we have a chat. Culture's everything for us. It's really about ensuring that we sustain that passion and we have people that come in the door every day and bring their best work and that are passionate about what they're doing. And then the last thing is just the importance of speed. I love this quote. This is something that's not Rod's quote, but he uses it all the time. It's not the big that eat the small, it's the fast that eat the slow. This is something that Rod, we talk about all the time. I'll tell you I'll finish with a really interesting story. When I started at Xero, the second board meeting I went to when the board decided, hey, we're pushing for break even at the end of this year. We know we can get there, but you know what? There's a massive opportunity across the markets here. We're going to invest for growth. We raised capital and, away we went. I remember when I was doing the first roadshow in May of 2011. Some of you might actually think it came to Newcastle. And I was in the Qantas Lounge on a Sunday night, and Craig Winkler, who's on our board, founder of MYOB, who's now number 2 shareholder in Xero, he's coming up the escalators, he's coming down as I'm going up. He said, hey, we need to talk. And we sat down and we spoke about the need to bring payroll into the product. He said, you've got to do this. You will be number 3 and 4 forever and a day if we don't have payroll in the product. We've got to figure out a way to do it. And I had these concepts of, we could do a joint venture. There's this great little add-on called PayCycle, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, had an argument with Rod said, no, we can build it. And I said, no, I don't think we can. Anyway, to cut a long story short, lots of iterations, had a chat with the founder, we went through the whole process. We ended up acquiring PayCycle. I was standing on stage at XeroCon in August announcing this. The process from when I first spoke to Craig Winkler to when we actually was standing on stage with Stuart McLeod announcing the acquisition was 7.5 weeks. And it was a shock to my system because coming out of corporate world, we wouldn't have even been at the first round of discussions at the executive team talking about what we wanted to do. But here we were, we acquired, it was all based on instinct. Yep, it was massive risk, but we were going hell for leather. And we launched payroll a year later, and our sales overnight went up 3-fold and sustained because the market wanted it. So it was a really huge lesson for me that there's speed, you've got to be quick in what you're doing, take some risks, and it's a lot of fun. That's my story. Thanks very much. It's been great to be here. Thank you.